When humans invented the wheel, it was the beginning of a long list of vehicle designs. This long and sometimes rather crazy history was particularly amazing during the 20th century. Here's a taste.
Gravity itself is our motive power and pulls us along.
In 1930, John Archibald Purves patented the Dynasphere, a monowheel vehicle inspired by a sketch made by Leonardo da Vinci. Two prototypes were made, an electrical model and another one with a gasoline motor. This one could reach 30 miles per hour, and after several tests it was hailed for years as the high-speed vehicle of the future. However, the Dynasphere never left its prototype stage because, like with most monowheels, it was nearly impossible to steer or brake. One might agree, these are pretty important features. Rigid airships, commonly called Zeppelins, enjoyed a relative success from the early 1900s until the end of the 1930s. The world's first airline in revenue service, the German DLAG, had carried over 10,000 paying passengers in more than 1,500 flights by 1914. And during World War I, the Germans used Zeppelins to bomb British territory, killing over 500 people. Their defeat in World War I forbade German companies from building new Zeppelins until the prohibition was lifted in 1926. That's when this vehicle had its second golden decade, building the LZ-129 Hindenburg, which operated regular transatlantic flights from Germany to America. In 1937, the Hindenburg disaster started the downfall of this vehicle. Not that we have footage from the period, but an early Chinese text, the Book of the Golden Hallmaster, dated 500 AD, already describes large vehicles with masts and sails mounted on them. These wind-driven carriages were able to carry 30 people at once. It wasn't until 1600 that these vehicles were introduced to Europe, mainly for recreation purposes. However, during the 19th century and the early 20th century, land yachts were also used for the transport of goods on dry lakes in the US.
The United States Navy reveals the closest thing yet to a magic carpet. It's called the flying platform.
In 1955, they thought that perhaps this could become the personal vehicle of the future. The Hiller VZ-1 Pawnee, also known as a flying platform, was a rotor aircraft designed by the US Army that lifted a platform using contra-rotating ducted fans. The pilot had to shift his body weight to control its direction. 6 prototypes were built and they flew successfully at a maximum speed of 26 km per hour. However, it was discarded as a combat vehicle due to its small size, slow speed, and the fact that it could only fly a few feet above the ground. The SP-350 Denise is linked to the name of famous scientist Jacques Cousteau. Denise was the very first underwater vehicle designed for scientific exploration. This diving saucer sailed the depths of the oceans from 1959. She could work as deep as 350 meters down. She moved like a squid, with a simple jet propulsion system that gave her a maximum speed of 3.7 kilometers an hour. With a capacity of 2 people stretched on mattresses, the scientists inside would watch the surroundings through tilted portholes that allowed them to get just a few centimeters from their subjects. Equipped with movable lights, cameras and tape recorders, Denise became an essential piece of Cousteau's ship, the Calypso, until 1965. Nobody is saying or disputing whether flying saucers exist nowadays, but we know now that during the 50s, the armies of several nations developed designs for flying discs that look very much like our idea of a UFO. Does that explain anything? As they say, the truth is out there.
Sorry to disappoint you, it didn't drop in from Mars or Venus. It has been suggested that aircraft of the future may well develop along these lines, or rather curves.
In 1959, the union of the hovercraft and the motor scooter gave us the hover scooter. Although technically airborne, it became clear that it couldn't really raise above the 6 inches or so of air cushion. Its rather bulky shape and the unprotected ducted fan on the front were the reasons why this vehicle never went mainstream. We have longed for this invention as a means of transport since we watched James Bond fly using a similar gadget. The jetpack is a real device, propelled by jets of escaping gases that lift a single traveller into the air, allowing him to fly. It started being developed in the 1960s when sci-fi technology was actually available, and it has been used for astronauts' extravehicular activities. However, the Earth's gravity and the difficult adaptation of the human body to flying naturally have been the main obstacles for not using it in the army or as a means of personal transport.